Have you noticed unexplained tension in your home lately? Those recurring nightmares that wake you up at 3 a.m.? The sudden conflicts between family members who used to get along so well? That persistent feeling of being watched when you're alone in your room? Many people brush these off as mere coincidence or stress. But what if I told you that certain items in your home right now could be inviting dark forces that affect your family's peace and well-being? In this eye-opening video, I'll reveal common household items that might be creating spiritual doorways you never knew existed. These aren't just ancient artifacts or obvious occult objects. Some of them are sitting in your living room right now, disguised as harmless decorations or everyday entertainment. What you'll discover today could transform your home from a place of hidden spiritual warfare into a sanctuary of peace. Stay with me. Your family's spiritual safety might depend on what you learn in the next 40 minutes. Let me share something most people don't realize. We're in the middle of an invisible war. While we focus on our visible struggles, health, relationships, finances, there's a battle raging in the spiritual realm that affects every aspect of our lives. The most dangerous thing about this war? Most of us don't even know we're in it. Think about Sarah, a successful businesswoman who had everything going for her. She never believed in spiritual warfare until strange things started happening in her newly renovated home. Her children began having terrifying nightmares. Her usually peaceful marriage became filled with inexplicable arguments. Even her pets seemed agitated, barking at empty corners of the house. The Bible warns us explicitly about this invisible battle in Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's a reality that affects millions of homes today. The enemy's greatest strategy? Convincing you he doesn't exist. When you're not on guard, when you think it's all just superstition or coincidence, that's when you're most vulnerable. I've seen countless families dismiss these warnings only to find themselves dealing with unexplainable situations that no amount of counseling or medication could resolve. Take Michael's family, for instance. They were skeptical about spiritual warfare until they moved into their dream home. Within months, their teenage daughter developed severe anxiety, their son's grades plummeted, and their marriage nearly fell apart. The cause? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore in this video, because what they discovered in their home might be sitting in your living room right now. But before we reveal these seemingly innocent items that could be inviting darkness into your home, you need to understand something crucial. This isn't about fear. It's about awareness. It's about protecting your family from forces that would rather stay hidden. Because once you know what to look for, you'll be amazed at how many doors you might have unknowingly left open. Stay with me, because in the next segment, I'm going to show you exactly what these items are and why they're more dangerous than you might think. Your home should be your sanctuary, not a battleground for spiritual warfare. Think about the last time you went shopping for home decor. Did you check the spiritual significance of that beautiful Buddha statue? Or consider the energy behind that trendy crystal collection? Most of us don't. We're drawn to aesthetics, to what looks good on our shelves. But some of these seemingly innocent items carry dark spiritual weight that can affect our homes in ways we never imagined. Let's start with something that might shock you: traditional amulets and protective charms. You might think they're keeping evil away, but according to Scripture, they're doing exactly the opposite. Deuteronomy 7:25 is crystal clear about this. The carved images of their gods you shall burn with fire. Why such a strong command? Because these items, regardless of the positive intentions behind them, create spiritual connections that God explicitly warns against. Consider Maria's story. She was given a protective elephant statue by a well-meaning friend. Within weeks, her previously peaceful home became a hotbed of conflict. Her children started having nightmares about elephants, despite never watching shows about them. The connection seemed bizarre until she learned about the deity this particular statue represented. When she removed it, the atmosphere in her home changed dramatically within days. But sometimes these items are harder to identify. Take Lisa's case. She had a beautiful necklace passed down through generations, not knowing it contained symbols used in ancient pagan rituals. She wore it proudly as a family heirloom until she began experiencing recurring nightmares and an unexplainable sense of oppression. It wasn't until she consulted with a spiritual advisor that she learned about the necklace's true nature. The danger of these items lies not in their physical form, but in their spiritual associations. Even items created without explicit spiritual intent can become conduits for darkness. A seemingly innocent artwork might incorporate symbols or patterns that have been used in occult practices for centuries. That's why discernment is crucial. Now, let's delve deeper into entertainment, a category many Christians overlook. That horror movie collection you're proud of? Those video games filled with occult symbols? They're not just harmless fun. Psalm 101:3 warns us, "I will set no evil thing before my eyes." When we repeatedly expose ourselves to dark themes, violent imagery, and anti-God messages, we're essentially hanging a welcome sign for spiritual darkness. I recently counseled a teenage boy named James who couldn't understand why he was having violent thoughts and deep depression. His room was filled with posters from dark-themed bands and games. His parents thought it was just a phase, but the spiritual atmosphere in his room was palpable. Within weeks of removing these items, his mental state improved dramatically. His story isn't unique. I've seen this pattern repeated countless times. The music we listen to deserves special attention. Many popular songs contain lyrics that glorify darkness, rebellion against God, or occult practices. Some artists openly admit to drawing inspiration from dark spiritual sources. When we fill our homes with this music, we're literally broadcasting these spiritual frequencies into our living spaces. Take the case of a young worship leader who collected vinyl records. He noticed his spiritual life deteriorating and couldn't understand why, until someone pointed out that many of his vintage records featured occult symbolism on their covers. Even though he wasn't playing these particular records, their presence in his home was creating a spiritual conflict. Perhaps the most subtle category is items from other religions. That feng shui bracelet promising good fortune? Those dream catchers protecting your sleep? The zodiac wall art in your living room? 1 Corinthians 10:20 tells us plainly, "The things that the pagans sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God." These items might seem culturally enlightened or merely decorative, but they often carry spiritual baggage we can't see. The Anderson family's story illustrates this perfectly. They decorated their new home with various cultural artifacts from their world travels: African tribal masks, Hindu deities, Native American totems. They thought they were creating a worldly, sophisticated atmosphere. Instead, they created a spiritual mess. Their home became a place of constant tension, unexplained illness, and financial struggle. It wasn't until they learned about the spiritual significance of these items that they understood what was happening. But it's not just obvious religious artifacts we need to worry about. Many common household items have pagan origins or connections that we've forgotten. take the dream catcher in your bedroom. It's not just a pretty decoration. It's a spiritual tool designed to interact with the spirit world. Or consider those lucky bamboo plants sold in many stores. While they might seem harmless, they're often sold with traditional feng shui instructions that tie them to non-Christian spiritual practices. Even items that appear Christian can be problematic if they mix faith with other spiritual practices. I have encountered families who kept blessed crystals or Christian zodiac symbols, not realizing these represent dangerous spiritual syncretism. The Bible is clear about not mixing the worship of God with other spiritual practices. 2 Corinthians 6:14-16. The rise of New Age practices has introduced a whole new category of potentially dangerous items into our homes. Crystal collections, sage bundles, and tarot cards are increasingly common, often marketed as tools for spiritual wellness or self-discovery. But these items are gateways to spiritual practices that directly contradict biblical truth. Sarah, a former New Age practitioner, shared how her collection of healing crystals and meditation tools created a spiritual barrier between her and God. Even after accepting Christ, she felt spiritually stuck until she removed these items from her home. The transformation in her spiritual life was immediate and profound. Books deserve special mention here. Many homes contain books about witchcraft, astrology, or other occult practices. Some people keep them out of curiosity or academic interest, not realizing that these books can be spiritual conduits. Acts 19:19 describes new believers bringing their occult books and burning them, a clear biblical precedent for how we should handle such materials. Remember, Satan doesn't need your permission to establish a foothold. All he needs is an open door, and these items can be just that. Doorways for spiritual influence in your home. This isn't about cultural insensitivity or narrow-mindedness. It's about spiritual discernment and protecting your family from influences that the Bible clearly warns us against. The presence of these items in your home can create what I call spiritual static, interference in your relationship with God and your ability to discern His voice. Just as a radio needs a clear signal to receive a broadcast clearly, our spirits need an environment free from competing spiritual influences to commune with God effectively. Think of it this way. Would you knowingly bring something toxic into your home where your children could be exposed to it? Of course not. Yet many of us unknowingly keep spiritually toxic items in our homes, wondering why we're experiencing spiritual, emotional, or even physical problems. But here's the crucial part. Knowing about these items is only the first step. What really matters is what you'll do with this knowledge. In the next segment, we'll explore exactly how these items affect your daily life. And trust me, once you understand the signs, you'll never look at that harmless decoration the same way again. We'll learn to identify the subtle ways these items influence our homes and families, and most importantly, what we can do about it. The choice is yours. Will you continue to allow these potential doorways for darkness to remain in your home, or will you take action to create a spiritually clean and protected environment for your family? Let me tell you about Rachel, a successful therapist who prided herself on her rational approach to life's problems. For months, she'd been experiencing inexplicable anxiety attacks, despite having no history of anxiety. Her marriage was struggling, and her teenage daughter had become increasingly withdrawn. The turning point came when she discovered the truth about a vintage occult board game stored in her attic, a family heirloom she'd never used but couldn't bring herself to throw away. The signs of spiritual interference often masquerade as everyday problems. That unexplained depression that medication can't seem to touch? Those persistent nightmares that leave you feeling drained? The sudden outbursts of anger that seem to come from nowhere? While these issues can have natural causes, they're sometimes symptoms of a deeper spiritual problem. David's family struggled with inexplicable health issues for years. Doctors couldn't explain why all 4 family members experienced chronic fatigue and persistent headaches. Their breaking point came during a home renovation, when they discovered a collection of tribal masks hidden in their basement by previous owners. These masks, they later learned, had been used in religious ceremonies. Within weeks of removing them, their health issues began to resolve. The influence of spiritually compromised items often follows a pattern. It usually starts subtle, small changes in mood, unexplained feelings of unease, or a growing sense of disconnection from God. Then it escalates. Family members begin experiencing night terrors. Relationships become strained for no apparent reason. Financial problems arise out of nowhere. The home itself might feel different. Certain rooms feel heavy or oppressive. Consider the experience of the Martinez family. After bringing home an antique mirror from Asia, their once peaceful home became a battleground. Their children began seeing shadows in the mirror. The parents started having intense arguments over trivial matters. Their youngest child developed severe insomnia. They tried everything from family therapy to home renovation, but nothing helped until they learned about the mirror's origins in temple ceremonies. These influences can even affect our decision-making abilities. Sarah, a longtime Christian, found herself increasingly drawn to New Age practices after keeping a gift of healing crystals on her bedside table. She described it as a subtle pulling away from her faith, like a spiritual undertow she didn't notice until she was already far from shore. The most dangerous aspect of these items' influence is how they can create blind spots in our spiritual discernment. Like a slow-acting poison, they gradually numb us to their presence. We might find ourselves making excuses for keeping them, feeling unusually attached to them, or becoming defensive when others question their presence in our homes. Pastor James shared a story about counseling a couple whose marriage was on the brink of divorce. During a home visit, he felt led to ask about a beautiful Asian sculpture in their living room. The wife admitted she'd been having recurring dreams about being watched since they bought it. After researching its significance and removing it, their relationship began to heal, and the dreams stopped. Here's the crucial truth. These items don't just affect our spiritual lives. They influence every aspect of our existence. They can impact our physical health, mental well-being, relationships, and even our financial stability. The Bible teaches us that spiritual warfare is holistic, affecting both body and spirit. But there's hope. Understanding these influences is the first step toward freedom. In the next segment, I'll show you exactly how to identify and remove these items from your home, and more importantly, how to close the spiritual doors they might have opened. Your home can become a sanctuary again, a place where God's peace reigns and where darkness has no foothold. The process of cleansing your home isn't just about physical removal. It's a spiritual journey that requires wisdom and divine guidance. Let me share with you the story of the Thompson family, who transformed their home from a place of spiritual oppression to a sanctuary of peace. Their journey begins with what might seem like a radical step: a complete home inventory. First, you need to systematically go through every room in your house. Don't just look at the obvious places. Check closets, attics, basements, and even your children's toy boxes. The Thompsons were shocked to find their teenage son's collector's items included figurines based on demonic characters. Look carefully at artwork, jewelry, books, movies, and music. Even items that seem innocent might need a second look. Mark, a church elder, discovered that his chronic insomnia disappeared after removing a dream catcher he'd kept for 20 years. "I never thought it could have any power," he said. "It was just decoration to me." Pay special attention to items you feel unusually attached to or find yourself making excuses to keep. This emotional attachment can be a sign of spiritual bondage. When you find these items, don't just throw them in the trash. The Bible gives us clear instruction. These items should be destroyed, preferably by burning when safe to do so. Jennifer, a former New Age practitioner, described the profound sense of relief she felt after burning her tarot cards and crystal collection. "It was like chains falling off," she explained. "I could finally breathe freely in my own home." But physical removal is just the beginning. Your home needs spiritual cleansing through prayer. Walk through each room, anointing doorways and windows with oil if you feel led, claiming the blood of Jesus over your property. James 4:7 reminds us, "Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." This isn't just a suggestion, it's a spiritual principle that works. Finally, fill your home with elements that invite God's presence. Replace that explicit music with worship songs. Swap out those horror movies for content that uplifts and edifies. The Martinez family transformed their game room from a place full of violent video games to a space for family Bible study and prayer. The change in their home's atmosphere was remarkable. Remember, creating a spiritually clean home isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing commitment. Stay vigilant about what you allow into your space. When in doubt, pray for discernment. Your home should be a place where angels, not demons, feel welcome to dwell. Let me be direct. Ignoring these spiritual warning signs isn't just unwise, it's dangerous. Consider Thomas, a skeptical business executive who dismissed his wife's concerns about the antique occult items they'd inherited. "It's just superstition," he'd say. Within a year, their thriving business nearly bankrupted, their teenage son developed severe depression, and their marriage almost ended. All because they chose to ignore the signs. The enemy thrives on our ignorance and denial. When we brush off these spiritual realities as mere coincidence or paranoia, we give darkness permission to strengthen its hold. The Bible warns us in 1 Peter 5:8, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour." This isn't metaphorical. It's a literal warning about a real enemy. Take the story of the Williams family. Despite their daughter's recurring nightmares and their son's sudden aggressive behavior, they kept dismissing the connection to the Eastern religious artifacts decorating their home. "We're too educated to believe in such things," they'd say. It wasn't until their youngest child started describing conversations with shadow people that they finally took action. The transformation in their home after removing these items was immediate and profound. The consequences of spiritual compromise can escalate quickly. What starts as minor disturbances, unusual dreams, unexplained anxiety, random conflicts, can develop into serious problems: chronic illness, devastating financial losses, broken relationships, and even tragic accidents. The Peterson family ignored the signs for 3 generations, passing down family heirlooms that were actually ancient ritual items. The pattern of divorce, addiction, and mental health issues in their family only broke when they finally recognized and removed these spiritual strongholds. Here's what makes this especially crucial. The longer you wait to address these issues, the more entrenched they become. Like roots growing deeper into soil, spiritual influences strengthen their hold over time. The items you're hesitating to remove today could be affecting your children's children tomorrow. Is that antique crystal ball or that artistic occult symbol really worth the risk to your family's spiritual well-being? The question isn't whether these influences are real. The question is what you're going to do about them now that you know. Will you continue to rationalize keeping these items in your home? Or will you take the bold step of choosing your family's spiritual safety over sentimental attachment or aesthetic appeal? Imagine walking into your home and feeling an immediate sense of peace. Picture your children sleeping soundly through the night, your relationships growing stronger, and your family drawing closer to God. This isn't just a dream. It's what happens when you choose to make your home a sanctuary for God's presence. Let me share with you the story of the Richardson family. After removing every spiritually compromising item from their home and dedicating it to God, they experienced what they call their family revival. Their teenage daughter, who had been distant from faith, started joining them for prayer. Their young son's nightmares ceased completely. Even their marriage found new strength. "It's like we're living in a different home," Mrs. Richardson said, "but we just cleared out what shouldn't have been here in the first place. Your home should be a spiritual fortress, not a playground for darkness. Every item you keep, every piece of entertainment you allow, every decoration you display, these are either inviting God's presence or creating space for something else. The choice, as Joshua declared, is yours. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Joshua 24:15. Think about the legacy you're creating. The spiritual atmosphere in your home isn't just affecting you, it's shaping your children's understanding of spiritual reality. It's influencing how they'll make decisions about their own homes in the future. Every step you take toward spiritual cleanliness is an investment in generations to come. The time for action is now. Don't let another day pass with these spiritual doorways open in your home. Begin the process of cleansing your space. Establish boundaries about what you'll allow through your doors. Create an environment where angels feel welcome and demons find no foothold. Remember, a home dedicated to God becomes a powerhouse of blessing. It becomes a place where prayers are answered, where peace reigns, where relationships flourish, and where faith grows stronger. Isn't that the kind of home you want for your family? The decision is yours. Will you continue to compromise, allowing these spiritually dangerous items to influence your family? Or will you take a stand today, choosing to make your home a place where God's presence dwells and His peace prevails? The transformation of your home and your family's future hangs on your response to this question.